complain about process in the health insurance industry for providers, for patients, and honestly, for the payers themselves. A provider submits a request. A clinical reviewer has to pull up the medical policy, check every criterion against the documentation, figure out what is actually missing, and queue it. Most of that is extraction and pattern matching, exactly the kind of work an AI agent should be handling. But here's the catch: an AI agent that makes the actual approval or deny decision is a compliance and litigation nightmare actually awaiting to happen. So the design constraint is the agent does the intake work and the human actually makes the call every time. So I adapted an AWS event-driven architecture whereby a request comes in and then it lands in S3 bucket, and then the event bridge actually picks up the event, and then it triggers a lambda to sign the request with sign v4 and fires it at the Agentcore runtime. So this is my authentication part, and then we come to the Agentcore architecture. Now, the runtime hosts two agents in dual agent pipeline. And as you can see, here is an example of the pipeline. So phase one, the intake agent, it uses I've used cloud to extract the clinical details. It calls up the lookup member for eligibility and then calls up the policy tool to get the coverage criteria for that specific code. It then assesses the documentation against each criteria, one line per criterion, grounded only in what the policy actually says. And then we go on to phase two, whereby the clinical validator independently rechecks phase one's work. Did it cite the real criteria? Does the evidence actually appear in the docs? And then it scores the confidence 0 to 100 and then routes the agent either to create a claim, that's a notification, or for a human review or request more info. And then all tool calls goes through the MCP gateway, which uses semantic discovery. So adding a tool is a lambda and JSON schema. No agent code changes, and CEDAR policies are enforced at the gateway before the lambda even actually runs. The agent literally cannot override them. 6 lambda function backed by, when you go to the full architecture, we got a 6 lambda function backed by DynamoDB, which stores the member info, policies, and cases, plus an SNS for review escalation. So I'm going to show you a simple demo on how this actually works. Let me show you one scenario, an MRI. This is an MRI brain request for a member with documented headaches, 6 weeks of symptoms, and conservative management to try. And now you can watch how phase one actually works. So it calls the lookup member tool, checks if it's active or not, and then the lookup policy, the specific policy. It got back 3 criteria. Now it's assessing each one. So and then it goes to it assesses if it meets the criteria, and then it goes to the validation. So the validator independently rechecks, and then it scores with the confidence. So it validates this intake assessment by actually checking it, and then it gives a confidence score, standard, and then it says it's going to route this for standard review. So nowhere, notice as you can see, nowhere it says if it's approved or not. It says queued for a standard clinical review. The language is very deliberate, right? So this is how when it checks for that one. And then we can check for a second scenario. Now this is a missing doc, right? Now a knee replacement, but the provider only submitted the x-ray. Watch the criteria how it actually checks. So check the member's value eligibility. So it's an insufficient documentation, right? The imaging is there, but the C2 conservative therapy is not documented. C3 functional limitation, not documented. So recommendation, insufficient documentation. And here's the business value. The RFI it sends back lists exactly which criterion IDs are missing. The provider doesn't have to guess or try to scramble to look for what to resubmit, right? This one, it says to request more information. So this is the last piece is the evaluation loop. Every invocation is scored by 3 built-in evaluators plus a custom LLM as a judge. I've used the Agentcore evaluation, and Agentcore evaluation has inbuilt evaluators, but I've chose to use custom evaluators for my specific use case. So it uh, uh, it checks for criteria hallucination, the agent inventing a criterion that wasn't in the medical policy. That's the domain number one failure mode, and it's a regression test, not a one-time check. This whole adaptation touched 14 files on a 76 resource stack. The prompt, tool schemas, the CEDA policies, the seed data, and the evaluators. Everything else, the runtime, the identity layer, the memory, the observability, is the platform agent. That's the agent core value proposition. That's how it works. The platform is generic. The domain is it's a specification. Thank you very much. I hope this one actually showed how to implement a real world use case into your workflow using Agentcore. Thank you very much.